Hello everyone, I am Cool Guy, and let's go ahead and talk about this patch preview. So there was a stream yesterday, it's the 2.5.02. I was at work, I was unable to take a look at it, but I did today, and a lot got shook up. So before we get into this, I don't really envy Bungie. Like I said, they have a lot of work to do, and as content creators, a lot of people on forums, you try to play armchair developer, and it's tough because you don't really know the inner workings of the game. Because you could change something that changes something else that really creates a problem. So when we talk about this, and to be honest, I've talked to a lot of content creators. We want to make these videos, but they're just most of the time they're just so well received. There's a lot of dislikes, a lot of hate, but that's not what it's all about. It's to talk about the game. It's community first. It's to get a discussion going. It's driving conversation. So when I look at these weapon updates, I'm excited and I'm very highly optimistic about this one because it's a new way to play Destiny, right? And this particular patch kind of helps me out. We're going to go into that in my particular playstyle. And what's nice about Destiny is there's so many different ways you can play it, and that's the most beautiful thing. And hopefully this opens up more weapon variety, as we've always wanted, really. With the different subclasses, you can do a lot of different things. You do you, and you can play how you want. So first of all, I want to bring this up. I have about 165,000 kills in the Crucible. And I always tell you guys that I lead with my primary weapon. Well, this is what that means. I have about 30,000 kills with the hand cannon, then it's super, then it's pulse rifle, then it's sniper. Then we have the shotgun, down there is the melee, and then the grenade with 8,500. So with this meta, I've actually almost doubled my shotgun kills. Those were around 8 or 9. So I do lead with my primary, and not in grenades to choke off and to try to get damage on, because I want to get kills with my primary weapon. That's how I like to play Destiny. That's what's fun for me. And for some people, that's not fun for them. They want to play a little bit differently, and that's okay. But with seeing how I play it, let's talk about what actually changed. And it all starts with the special ammo, and that segues into a lot of different things. So first of all, you start the match with the special ammo, and then you lose it after dying. So what does that mean? And I've seen some overreactions, and of course a lot of people are mad at it. The main thing is we don't really know how it's going to be, right? It's important to talk about it as intelligently as we can and not really jump to conclusions. And I have a very good example of that, and we'll talk about it later on. I actually tweeted at one of the devs. He got back to me, so it kind of eased my mind a little bit. So with this special ammo, you're going to be seeing icebreakers, invectives, and sidearms. So first of all, get with Future War Cult, get you a good wormwood, okay? It's one of the main weapons you get because you're trying to look for a waltz, you get a wormwood. So I recommend getting a good sidearm just to have that, maybe the trespasser. But what does all this mean? You start with it, but you don't get it. Ammo boxes spawn every minute. So in a Crucible match, that's a long time. And a lot of games end before the timer. So maybe, and once you do get it, you get your max ammo, and then when you die, you're done, right? So that leads into a lot of different things. And we might make a video, and we might talk about, getting the most out of that pickups. Like the Plan C will get you 6 fusion shots. That's really good. And we did that live, that analysis for the longbow. You have to have something on. You have to have ammo on, because you don't want 3 sniper shots when you pull that box out. That box just became very important. It's kind of like heavy ammo, right? So you should be using your super when that comes up, because there's going to be people around that box, right? So whether it be a Sunsinger zoning it off or coming at them with a roaming super, you will get kills, and you will try to, and you should try to secure that special box. So what else? It's 100 meters to 75. I'm not really too worried about that. You need to be very attentive when you're playing of these times, of these spawn times. And then players only start with, in the first round, you only get special ammo in the first round. I don't know if every 60 seconds after that, like, are people going to camp and then try to get special? One thing I do see is a lot more snipers. I don't really see shotgunners. And again, this is my opinion. We take it with a grain of salt. But if you think about it, this is essentially a primary meta, what they've done here with special ammo. We talk about hashtag make primaries great again. That's really what they did. But on a different scale, all right? On a wholly different mindset, different way of thinking. Because if it's a primary meta and it's 3v3 with a mid line, right? Someone's going to be rushing for position. Now, if he's rushing with a shotgun, I mean, you're going to have people looking at you with primaries and sniper rifles and grenades, right? For that first round. Say you do get special later on, it's going to probably be with the sniper rifle to get picks. You're going to be seeing, again, the invectives, the sidearms, and you're going to be seeing the icebreakers. Those are 3 main things in the Crucible right now. Do your Nightfalls, go with Future War Cult, get you an invective. They very well might be very strong. So one of the things in elimination, more so with trials, right? A lot of people are talking about scories, and I'm worried about scories a little bit. Since we're kind of starved for special ammo and it's a primary meta, it's not just primary meta, it's also grenades, right? Those are hand in hand. Before, we would throw a grenade and I always talk about it. You throw the grenade, you lead with the grenade, you follow up with said special weapon. Well, that kind of is X'd out. So I see a couple things. I see the Void Walker Rising, 1. Because of the grenades with these siphon abilities. I see the Nothing Manacles, you get a kill with it, you get 2 grenades back, you have more to lead engagements with. So I see a big rise in the Void Walker, 1. 2, I see a rise in the Tlaloc. If it truly is a primary meta, I can see people with Scories and 3 Tlalocs in trials, and I can see people with like a team of 6 in Iron Banner with the Tlaloc and Scories and just completely murdering people. Like, it's a future. Like, it's like Armageddon, man. You look into the future, like in Terminator, like that's what it looks like. Tlalocs everywhere. Like, that's one of my worst fears. But so that changes a lot, and we start with the special ammo nerf because it segues into a lot of different things. So let's first start with the shotgun, right? That's one of the very first things, and we're gonna look at it a little bit deeper than what it says. So, significantly decrease the aim assist and/or magnetism when firing from the hip. They aren't talking about shooting from the hip. I don't look at it like that. I'm looking at it like this. A lot of people ask me, hey, cool guy, what do you shotgun on? What do you snipe on? What do you play? I play on 4. I play on 4 in everything, in any game, because it's muscle memory, and I might get into an aiming video and some common things that you can do to improve your aim and get you on point. And we talked about a little bit with the Crucible Tip video on how to be a better player, but there are certain things in the dance. And when I talk about the dance, in the gunfight, you have 3 main things, and it all applies, and we're going to talk about it as we go. It's flinch versus flinch, it's movement, or strafing versus strafing, and then it's landing your shots, right? So, on a high sensitivity, I play on 4, no matter what, right? And a good player will tell you, a lot of players will tell you, no one really should be behind you, okay? Minus a spawn here or there, and or a blink, or not having a radar in an Inferno playlist. But your map awareness and your rotations, no one should ever really be behind you. So I see an issue for guys that play on 5 that switch to 8 to shotgun, because this is what's happening. They're not really talking about the magnetism, getting kills from the hip. It's tracking your target, right? So imagine coming across the map, and you kind of have to envision this, and you play on a high sensitivity, and you jump at somebody, and you're above them, but you have to look to the bottom left. It's going to shoot past him. It's not going to stop anymore. So pretty much you have to be aiming down sights, right? You have to be aiming down sights for the aim assist to kick in. So getting close to somebody with a high sensitivity, you have to be aiming down sights because it's not going to be slowing you down. And I can see that being an issue for a lot of you guys that play on the higher sensitivities. And I do recommend, if it becomes so bad, to just permanently lower that sensitivity for primary, for sniping. But then again, there are some people that are gifted that can play on that 7-8, and if you can handle it, you do you, man. But you have to think about it. It's going to be it's the tracking, running around with the shotgun, looking for people. You have to, and then you have to get close enough and aim down sights. So think about that, absorb that, as we're talking about more. They decrease the in-air accuracy, which I don't look into that too much, mainly because and the plays that can happen with doing that. I mean, we saw on the stream, he said that, and then like 4 people straight he killed from the air. So it can be done. It's just not going to be all the time like it was. And as far as baiting people coming around corners, being above, you're going to be fluffling and or falling down. It's going to be an extension of your melee, so you're going to land some bullets on him like he did in the stream. He was landing bullets on them that you can finish off with the melee. And one thing I remembered from a long time ago in a patch note, the goal for the shotgun is supposed to be an extension of your melee. I personally think the shotgun's range should be an extension of a Titan's melee, not a Stormcaller or a Warlock, because that's really, really far. Remove precision damage from shotguns, which you should be aiming for middle body mass anyway, except for the Chaperone, which they did not affect with. We got a buff in PvE of 20%. That's always good. So they increased aim down sight time for the rangefinder perk by shotguns by 25%. That's what's called a blanket nerf, and they can't really do that anymore. I'm not a big fan of those. They did that with auto rifles. Hey, the Sturles regime is super strong. Let's just make them all unusable, and 2 years later, we're back to having them good again, which we'll talk about. But that's mainly for the Matador and Party Crasher, right? Extending that range of those weapons. Now, if you start off with a lower range and have rangefinder, you're catching up at that point with your 2 to the morgues, with your curtain calls. Even like, let's go to dry rot, right? If I have rangefinder on the dry rot, it's a nerfed weapon now. That's not cool. It should have been only for those two, and maybe they can make a switch. Maybe they can single those out, and blanket has a lot to do with that, right? It's like when they nerfed the Vex, fusion rifles got nerfed, right? Because it was blanketed out. Technically, the Vex is a fusion rifle. Or when the fusion rifles got nerfed, the Vex got nerfed, because technically it is a fusion rifle. So they have to be a little bit more careful with that. And they removed the agility decrease, so you can be a little bit faster when walking around with the shotgun, which I agree with. I don't believe with that slow moving, you can make a lot more plays when you're walking a little bit faster. We have the pulse rifles. These low, like the Waltz, Clever Dragon, Grasp of Malok, they made them shoot a little bit slower. So you have to look at it like this. They're making it a little bit slower, meaning kind of like the Hawksaw. Well, the Hawksaw and Blind Perdition, the PDX, are really good right now, currently in the meta. Not necessarily with flinch, but with time to kill and range. So if they're kind of making it like the Hawksaw, that's okay. Like, I don't really see too much of a difference right there. I wouldn't be too worried about that. So pulse rifles across the board had their flinch reduced, and high caliber rounds aren't as effective. Absolutely, that needed to go, man. They're the only ones that did it, and did it consistently. But they also fixed flinch on hand cannons and auto rifles and things like that. So there's about to be a big science thing going on with what works, what doesn't work, how auto rifles work with and without high caliber rounds now. We'll talk about auto rifles later. Scout rifles applying flinch, like we just used that hero formula. Like, how's that going to be with high caliber rounds, fast firing? Even though they did, quote, nerf high caliber rounds and them not being effective, it should flinch a little bit more than it did because they fixed it. So they also increased the high rate of fire impact pulse rifles by 5.3. That is going to be the very first live gameplay commentary I do with the spare change. It is a hand laid stock, like at 80 or 90% stability, with counterbalance and glass half full. So from what I saw, it shoots significantly faster than it has ever before, and it still thumps, so it could be viable. And all these weapons, like I said, in that hero formula video, try to get a feel with what you might think is going to be good. And there's a reason I did 0 Day. There's a reason I did Hawk Moon. I was going to do a couple more before the stream, but I honestly thought they were getting adjusted, and we were on point. And for the Hawk Moon, it was accuracy, and we're going to talk about hand cannons. But these high-impact auto rifles got a really good buff, and that's what we're talking about next. They increased the base damage of the low rate of fire. So that Genesis chain was doing 35. Now that Genesis chain has focused fire, and another weapon that has focused fire is the Suros regime. So if it does 35 now, and before I forget it did like 32, it was like 2 or 3 more damage. It does more now. So basically it equates to a bullet. It's a 6 bullet kill instead of a 7. That's good. That's a faster time to kill. And also we're gonna have the flinch working. But that leads me to the Suros, and one of my very first videos, and it got popular, was the Suros regime trick, how to make the Suros shoot a little bit faster. And what I'm worried about is the Suros regime in general. First of all, try to get a year 1 Suros, because the year 1 Suros had high caliber rounds, or it has high caliber rounds. 2, you get a lot more range when you put on focus fire, but what I'm kind of worried about and excited about at the same time is one of the things I'm going to try. And as we're going through this, I'm going to put a couple things in your pocket to think about when this patch goes live. When you get halfway on that magazine, you get to the Suros perk, it's a very good glass half full, 35, 38, Right now, I think the last bullet does like 60. Like, it does a lot, dude. Like high 50s, low 60s. So now it might do low 70s. So I can see people spawning in, hip firing, get to the half mag, and then doing massive damage with the Suros. So that's something to worry about, and to think about, to try out. The critical multiplier is increased from 1.25 to 1.3. I think it was 1.5 when the game came out. They're really strong. But we're going to have to see how flinch and all that and rate of fire does with the Doctrine again, with the Righteous, and of course the Suros Grim Citizen. It's a really exciting time right now, but it's all range dependent. It's all dependent on what that critical multiplier does with time to kill, right? So moving on to hand cannons, very excited about this because it's essentially what I've been saying since day one. I've been beating it into the ground. In case you didn't know, is these significantly increased the initial first shot accuracy. They said to year 1, which means 0 bloom, which means your first shot should hit. It will hit if you're aiming at the head. They reduced the base range by 5 meters and reduced the max damage reduction from 50% to 33%. Here's the deal. Don't worry about that base range of 5 meter reduction. It's not that much, 1, and 2, this is what's happening. In effective range, the gun should be performing as it should. It should be thumping. And as you get off it, as you saw in Bannerfall, like at long range, he was doing like 22 to the head, 31 to the head, but he was actually landing the shot. So you can still snipe hand cannon from that long range and maybe get a cleanup kill, 1. 2, I'm excited to see what a hot swap hand cannon does with this initial shot accuracy, you know, holding up the second or third shot. I'm excited to see what max stability hand cannons like an IS Luna or that Devil You Know I did in a video, how that works out with initial shot accuracy, but it all falls with effective range. I still think true balance in the Crucible comes from effective range, keeping it tight and keeping it to range. Because a lot of maps, like I wouldn't be worried about that 5 meters. A lot of maps are designed, before we had all these close quarters maps, Vertigo, Memento, Asylum, Drifter, that people would get special and run around and kill you. Well, now there's not really going to be special, so we're going to be in range. And even bigger maps, we'll take your Widow's Court. You could technically do decently with the hand cannon in this current meta, you know, if it is that primary meta, because there's a lot of cover to go in and out, dodge, weave, get close, and then use the hand cannon. And I can honestly see like the Hawkamoon becoming really good. If that first shot accuracy is on point, remember we do have that aggressive ballistic, luck in the chamber, holding aces. So if that first one does, you know, that 108 and above, that could be really strong, guys. I'm dead serious. I would use the Hawkamoon, because even if the follow-up shots aren't as good, you're starting off good in that gunfight. And that's the 2 or 3 things that we have to really work out, right? Is the first shot accuracy going to be on point like they say it is? 1, 2, if you let it fully reset, are you going to be able to land the shot again as if you had 0 bloom? I don't think it's like that, but it's something to check. Or maybe it's aim assist dependent, right? Like one of my favorite Halo players, Naded, I actually saw him a couple weeks ago and talked to him in one of the Halo tournaments, is, you know, he's kind of a twitch shooter, so he will shoot, take off his reticle, bring it back, so he loses aim assist, brings it back. Does that reset that first shot? Who knows? You know, we need to check that out. We need to check out spamming, how the second and third shot follow-up shots are doing. You know, semi-spamming. There's just so much to look into. But I do think if this works, hand cannons do have a place, and it's going to be that very close to mid-range on the long end of mid-range. I'm very excited about it. And all these, they increase in-air accuracies, like Scout Rifles didn't do anything. But Scout Rifles could have a place. A lot of people were worried about people camping with Scout Rifles and Pulse Rifles. But again, most maps, you do have enough cover to get close, and you do have that grenade to lead with. Like, say it's an incendiary grenade with the Gunslinger, which we're going to talk about later. You know, you could still do decently, or if not, you can get close enough to where they're camping, and you can bring out your Scout Rifle in mid-game to take them out, then get back to your hand cannon. So there's a lot of things that we could talk about. Did I miss anything going on? All right, so let's go into the subclass changes. Warlock, reduced Stormcrawler melee range, absolutely. Should have been adjusted immediately after they put it out, maybe a couple days because it's strong. Blink is adjusted, which we talk about with the Juggernaut. We'll talk about that next. Landfall reduced, total time in Storm Trance. So I haven't seen Landfall in a long time. You saw it when it first came out, and essentially those gauntlets that grant landfall are completely obsolete. They were really knocked down because of the affinity mad specs, but why would I want to throw down landfall, then have Ionic Blink, and really just have like a short super, period? Nobody's going to do that. A lot of people use Ionic Blink for the movement to get away from people hardscoping with snipers, but it's mostly to chase people down, especially in trials. You know, you can chase down a Skating Titan with Stormcaller. So I don't really understand that one. Maybe they saw something. But moving on to Juggernaut with the Titan, Juggernaut disables quicker in midair, so they'll be in midair a little bit, but it kind of dissipates. Juggernaut cannot be activated in midair, so they can't be rushing at you jumping with Juggernaut. But then again, with the special ammo nerf, this opens up the shoulder charge. And like we were talking about with the Striker Titan with the Peregrine Greaves, you might see shoulder charge again. I don't really see Juggernaut too much. It's good for position, right? So like say you're, you know, that mid-game on Pantheon, right? You could use it for position. You get close. People are trying to primary you down or icebreaker you. You can get close with Jug Shield and use it as a defense, as it should be, right? Instead of offensively. But I do see the Striker Titan shoulder charge becoming a thing. But with this nerf, again, we have Blink not having radar. I think that they're really shutting down, again, they're really shutting down that player-to-player rush. Because when you rush at somebody, Blink's really good for movement to get across areas, one. And Juggernaut's good with skating because you're always skating, you're always getting the shield. But when you're going at a player, they reduced the inner accuracy of the shotgun. They reduced the aim assist from looking and acquiring the target to pretty much you have to be aimed down sights with the shotgun to get the aim assist. They've kind of eliminated that. They're really trying to really hunker that down. So I think that's what happened with Blink too. They're shutting that down. So and tell me what you guys think. That's what I see from it. But let's talk about the Hunter. Last thing, a couple things that I that I agree with, and it's one of those things that you can't really jump to conclusions, and this is where I tweeted at one of the devs, and it was, excuse me, it was Josh Hamrick. All right, so Hungering Blade for Blade Dancer grants health instead of regenerating health on swipe. So shields no longer regenerate on a kill. But I was thinking immediately, if that's the case, you can't, if you do that to the Blade Dancer, you got to do that to the Sunbreaker. Because think about the Sunbreaker, you know, it's the same situation. You get him low health, he gets a hammer kill, he's immediately ripped, he's steroided out, and you don't have a special weapon to kill him. So I said essentially to Josh Hamrick, you know, if you do that to the Blade Dancer, I mean, are we talking about doing that to the Sunbreaker? And he goes, I appreciate the feedback. Those two items play differently, though, and the Titan already has a cooldown implemented. And for the record, you can still earn shield back with the new changes, it just doesn't unstun them. So it's one of those things like, you can't really jump to conclusions without really knowing, you know? So I can see where they're going with that, and hopefully it works out to being balanced. And a lot of these roaming supers, we're going to have to team together and you have to primary them down. Like, and as it should be, right? You see a Sunbreaker, a lot of people try to either hero at them, and a lot of people can shut them down with a shotgun melee, but if you call them out, you're either going to run them or take a stand. So Throwing Knife does solar damage with the Gunslinger, and then Blink was adjusted, which we talked about. So it's kind of an indirect buff to the Gunslinger, right? So classes on the rise. Again, we talked about the Voidwalker. We talked about the Striker with the shoulder charge. We talked about the Sunbreaker with his hammers and his shield. But it's an indirect or buff to two things that I see. One being the Gunslinger, and it doesn't sound like it, but again, you talk about neutral game, it's your gunplay, Chain of Woe, Gunslinger's Trance, right? So I see the Gunslinger becoming good because of the primary game, and then you have the Golden Gun to shut down the roaming super. So I see the Gunslinger coming back, honestly. And I also see Invis on the Blade Dancer. And again, put a link down in the description of a Blade Dancer build I did a long time ago. It's for Invis. And again, a lot of people see or use Invis with a Hunter, and they aim down sights with a scope on a sniper rifle, but you see the glint through the Invis. The main thing about running Invis with the primary weapon is to get the first shot off, and honestly, you land it like 90-95% of the time as an Invis Hunter. So I see Invis coming back with the Khepri Sting and all that good stuff with the Blade Dancer. So again, we don't know a lot of this stuff, man. We're just kind of working through it, and who knows? Maybe it's just a couple more things. Maybe it's a whole laundry list, but we might do a video to talk about it, maybe not so in-depth. It's maybe to run through them, to confirm some of the things that we talked about, and to confirm actual numbers, and to confirm the new things. But this is a discussion. I always run my videos as a discussion piece. It's community first, and it's talking about the game that we love. For better or for worse, right? But I honestly do believe that it's going to be a better game come the 14th than it was these past 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So tell me what you guys think, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.
One final push and victory is yours.